The story of F.E.A.R 2 isn't just about Alma, or the Point Man, or the explosion that ended the first game. It's about something stranger, a sequel created in the middle of a legal split, two studios fighting over one franchise, and a game that survived by becoming something entirely different. When Monolith finished the original F.E.A.R, they were still under Vivendi, but shortly after the release Monolith split away, and that's where everything fell apart. Vivendi kept the F.E.A.R name, but Monolith kept the story, characters and the universe. So suddenly neither side had a complete game. Vivendi owned the title, while Monolith owned the soul, and both sides wanted to make their own F.E.A.R 2. Vivendi moved fast. They partnered with Day One Studios, the team behind the console ports, and began developing their own sequel simply called F.E.A.R 2. Meanwhile, Monolith refused to let their universe die. They started building a sequel without the F.E.A.R name at all, and they called it Project Origin. It was a spiritual successor that continued the original story even though they legally couldn't call it F.E.A.R. For a while both games existed at the same time. Two sequels, two timelines, one franchise split in half, and then everything changed. Warner Brothers, who now owned Monolith, stepped in and brought the F.E.A.R trademark from Vivendi. Vivendi's version was cancelled, Day One's work was scrapped, and Monolith's Project Origin finally became what it was always meant to be: F.E.A.R 2 Project Origin. Inside Monolith, F.E.A.R 2 was actually being built as two separate games. There was a PC-focused version, which was going to push the tech forward, and then there was also a console-focused version, built around the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. The PC version was more ambitious. There were better physics, more reactive environments, and an AI closer to the original. But halfway through development, it was cancelled. Monolith shifted entirely to the console build, and then ported that version back to PC. And here's the thing, because F.E.A.R 2 was built for consoles from the ground up, the control scheme actually made sense this time. In F.E.A.R 1 on the Xbox 360, aiming down sights meant clicking the right stick, which felt awkward and imprecise. F.E.A.R 2 finally adopted the modern layout, triggers for aiming and shooting, making the game feel far more natural on a controller. It's one of the few areas where the console-first approach genuinely improved the experience. And just so you know, I've scoured the internet, and as far as I can tell, there is no surviving footage of either the Day One Studios F.E.A.R 2 or Monolith's cancelled PC-only build. Everything you're seeing in this video is from the final F.E.A.R 2 Project Origin, because the earlier versions never made it far enough to leave any gameplay behind. To be fair, F.E.A.R 2 did improve a lot. The lighting was richer, the atmosphere was heavier, and the world felt more alive. There were schools, suburbs, hospitals, streets torn apart by Alma's awakening. But with those improvements came the downgrades. The legendary F.E.A.R 1 AI, the squads that flanked you, flushed you out, hunted you, were simplified. Encounters became more scripted. Rooms became less reactive. The physics weren't as wild or unpredictable. The combat was still fun, but it wasn't the same chess match of chaos that made the first game so iconic. Narratively, F.E.A.R 2 picks up directly after the first game's explosion. It ignores Extraction Point and Perseus Mandate entirely, because those expansions were made by Timegate, not Monolith. So F.E.A.R 2 becomes a clean slate, a direct continuation of Alma's story, untouched by parallel expansions. A sequel rebuilt from the legal fallout, cancelled projects, and a franchise torn in two. So F.E.A.R 2 is a sequel born from chaos, a game that survived a rights war, two competing sequels, and even a cancelled PC build. It's bigger, smoother and more cinematic, but also a reminder of what happens when a franchise is split apart and stitched back together again. And F.E.A.R's story doesn't end here, because the next game in the series, F.E.A.R 3, takes everything in a completely different direction. There are new developers, a new tone, co-op horror, and a shift so dramatic that fans still argue about it today. In the next video, we're diving into how F.E.A.R 3 tried to reinvent the franchise, and whether it actually worked.